Hello and welcome to the continued series of Kult and its many people who have made it so great and amazing. Today we are joined by Bastien Lecouffe-Deharme.
Hi.
And he is the main artist for the cover art, a lot of the inspiration for pretty much any scenario. If you're looking at it, I know for me, when I look at just one little thing of art, it's like, it inspires so many stories and so many scenarios. So it is super awesome to chat with you, Bastien.
Yeah, I'm super happy that you are having me. Yeah.
So for those who may not know you, how would you introduce yourself?
I'm a French person living in America. I will try to give you all the information, but the ones that matter. So basically,
Yes.
to make it very simple, I'm an illustrator. I'm a professor. I'm a role-playing game maker. I'm many other stuff, but that's I guess the things that do matter for us right now.
Yeah.
As an artist, I work for companies like Magic the Gathering, for example. I do a lot of covers for role-playing games or novels or pretty much every publisher around. I've been working with them at a time or another. So yeah, that's what I do.
What so you said you're a professor. What do you teach, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm a professor of art in general, but so basically I'm supervising the studio art part of the department I work with at the university. So I teach a lot of traditional drawing, but I'm also opening an illustration pool where I teach the students everything I can teach them about illustration and concept art.
Ooh, amazing. And you have a very unique and distinct style. I mean, just looking at Gods right here, which is a role-playing game that you made, which is super exciting. And I know you have another one coming down the pipeline, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
I hope we will.
We're going to touch on everything, but I want to hear the start of your journey that has brought you to this amazing point where you pretty much, I feel like you're doing something you love at least.
Yeah, I did fight for it at some moments in my life, but today, I definitely do. I was born in the
Yes, go.
No, I mean, I was born from in Brittany, which is a part of France that tends to not consider itself French, but more like some kind of people from the sea, people from the moors. We are sometimes culturally almost closer to England than we are from France, basically. So I grew up. I grew up there from a family that is originally more from Paris. I'm going to give you the short version because I can go on like that forever. But
I mean, I can listen forever. Go ahead.
I have, early on, I had some art professors in. Sorry, I'm blurring. Okay, some art professors in in a little school who like tried to tell my parents that I should stop drawing forever because everything was just too messy, too bizarre, too sketchy, and then the voices changed, and a lot of professors in high school and stuff told me like I had to do something with that, and that was good news because that was really the only thing I could picture myself doing other than becoming Indiana Jones or an FBI agent. Ooh. So I went for art.
You still could be an FBI agent. It's not exclusive.
Not anymore.
What?
Not anymore. I'm too old. Last year was the last year I could have applied for it. So trust me.
I feel like that's something an FBI agent would say if he was undercover.
And so I mean, I when I was a kid, I was I started role-playing games when I was 7 with my dad. A kid at my birthday did bring me a little box with the Dark Eye in there.
Yeah.
And
Oh man, Dark Eye.
My dad was like, "What the fuck is that shit?" And can I say profanities on the?
Oh yeah. We curse here.
Okay, perfect. And so so basically, my dad was like, "What the fuck is that?" Went through it, and he thought it was entertaining, so he decided to run a small game with me, my brother. I think my mom played, or and after that, I got the virus. I became a game master when I was 12. We used to play with my friends Gilles and Thomas and their neighbor, and we were like gathering at night, not sleeping at all, and anyway, all those things made that very early on I started to draw characters, landscapes, and I became very. Anytime I was writing a scenario, I needed to illustrate it.
Yeah.
And that's really, so basically role-playing games really made me become the illustrator I am today. And so I feel like I lived my entire career as an illustrator, dreaming of another career. And that other career was, I need to get back to make my games, I need to come full circle.
Yeah.
And so the past 3 years I've been me. Now that my career as an illustrator, I think I've been professional for 15 years now. Know that this career is just, ongoing, so much better than what I ever thought I would ever. I got awards and things that I did not know were even something I could ever reach, and so now it's time for me to achieve my final goal, which is making
Final
those games.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds amazing. I mean, so what were the early drawings of Bastien? What did they look like? And do you even have like something from back when?
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff, yeah. This was not planned, by the way.
We appreciate it.
This was really not planned. That's just, I had a student asking for this not so long ago. And so I kind of unearthed, I found those. Some of them are appropriate, some of them are not, so I don't know whether I can share, but those are like, scribbles from when I was like...
Oh, wow.
From when I was, I don't know, 18 years old, something like that, role-playing game characters.
That is really... Yeah, you can show whatever you want. This is a mature channel. We're awesome.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, I'm going to keep my finger on that one because that one is really inappropriate. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, I answered your. I think I answered your question a bit more than what you were expecting.
Oh, I loved it. But I mean, in looking at that, and then looking at the picture on or the piece on your right, wait, on your left.
Yeah.
When could you look back and kind of see your distinct style being developed and maturing?
So you're pushing me to talk about failures.
Yes.
So I was drawing on paper. Really, I'm a pencil artist. Originally, that's really what I love to do. Pencil, piece of paper, and just. But at some point, I realized that to reach the level I wanted to for my image to look really like I wanted them to do, I needed to start, coloring them and trying to achieve some kind of realism. And the more I tried to do that with my watercolor and my acrylics, I realized I sucked at that completely. And I found out on my own really that if I was working with photographic elements, I will achieve realism quick. And so a lot of artists will tell you it's all about the long run. It's all about practicing until you get it where you want. And of course that's completely true.
Yeah.
But basically, as a young, smart dude, I decided to cheat on that, and I decided to achieve realism by taking photographs and just putting it there. but in a way that it became my own cooking, basically. So I started to, I don't know, take pictures of my fridge and make a spaceship out of it, or take pictures of, take pictures of my cat and build a fur coat on a warrior just with the texture of the fur of my cat, and just stuff like that. And of course, painting at the same time. So we are talking about digital art right now, where I could really mix photograph, mix painting, mix everything together. And so today, because I went through that phase of having a work that was excessively photographic, I was still fighting my own process because I was trying to get it under control.
Yeah.
Because when you work with too much photographs, you become kind of depending on the photographs. And so if you want to take some freedom with your artwork and do some things that are not in the photograph, you find yourself hitting a wall. And so no matter what, I ended up learning painting a lot more. And today my work is not limited by my use of photograph, but powered by my use of photograph and my knowledge in painting. And that's good because depending on what the clients want, I have some pieces that are exclusively painted today.
Yeah.
And some pieces that are more realistic photographic. And I love to work with both. For example, a lot of work that I do for Magic will be more painterly. And a lot of work that I do for Retro City will be almost, that's my other game, will be almost exclusively photographic with a bit of manipulation, but I want it so realistic that I want a lot of photograph. And Gods is in between, for example. It's in between the painterly and the photographic because I want the realism, but I want the painting style of, dark fantasy at the same time.
Interesting. So the piece kind of to your left, was that used with a photo?
Actually, not that one. That one was. It comes from a moment in my life when I was trying to imitate with my painting, because I had this big imposter syndrome. I was like, I'm good at nothing. I need photograph. If I don't have photograph, I'm nothing at all. And so I'm being very honest with you right now. I don't know if you
I feel like everyone in the industry definitely deals with that imposter syndrome. It's tough.
Yeah. And so mine was targeted toward my use of photograph. I'm using photograph because I don't know how to paint. And so a big I don't know, it was probably, I don't know, no, I'm lost, like probably 7-8 years ago, I had that phase where I was really trying to paint everything without using photograph directly, but just as a reference. And so, and that piece is a result of that. I think there is a bit of photo texture, but there is no photograph that I really took and put into it.
Yeah.
So it's really one of the pieces that came from me practicing actual painting. And that one is on my wall because this was the first of my pictures that ended up into Spectrum, the book that really welcomes the best of the best of fantastic artists today. And so one day I felt ready. I submitted that piece, and that piece got in, and that was one of my most significant personal achievements.
I mean, it's a gorgeous picture, and it's definitely captures the eye. I'm gonna pull out this puppy right here, one that you are familiar with.
I've seen that one before, yes.
So when you approached this, what were you thinking? What was kind of the basis of this image?
Well, first of all, I knew, I knew what client it was. I was like, okay, this is for Kult. All right, so that already, you have to understand that for a little French kid who plays role-playing game, very young, exactly at the phase in Europe where it was probably at the same time than the satanic panic in the US, where suddenly your hobby that you enjoy so much and that you spend all your time doing becomes you know, the most satanist stuff that you can that you can be doing. And so that was a time where I had my English professor at school who she called my parents and she gave them a phone call and she was like, I really need to meet with you. I need to talk with you. We have I think we have a problem with your son. And so my parents. Sorry, I will answer your question.
Right. No, please do. I'm interested in this story.
And so my parents go and meet with her and very concerned. You know, she looks at them. She's like, I think your son is participating into some role-playing games. You know, and my dad was like, well, yeah, he started with me. You know, so
It makes sense.
And at the time, during that context, Kult was the game that it was a big problem in the industry. You know, it was the game that if you play Kult, it's not like you're playing Dungeon and Dragon. You're not playing like Kult was really special.
Yeah.
At least its reputation. And so, of course, that attracted me and us. You know, we were more. Me and my group, we quickly became more like vampire players. And you know, I was really attracted to games with a darkness, to really put it simply. Games that tickles a little bit more in depth than just opening a door and killing a dragon, saving the princess, or and so. And I mean that, like, I love Dungeon and Dragon, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But so basically, really long story, almost short. I was excessively excited when Peter messaged me to do the cover of Kult. I was like, wait a second, Kult is coming back, and do the cover. So yeah, that's pretty much. I was super excited. I was more excited by that than a lot of other commissions, you know, like, and I think it shows on the cover. I think this cover shows how excited I was to work on it. And so I think so. The deal was, I don't know if I can talk about that or not, but I remember that the money offer was absolutely not matching my usual rates. And I was kind of like, I don't give a fuck, I'm going to do it for free, no problem, you know. And so I don't remember what we finally agreed on or anything. What I know is that after that cover was done, the financing campaign of the game went super well, and that since then, Helmgast had been very generous with me, and you know, commissioning other covers, and so it was like, it was really a good. It was not just awesome to do the cover; it was actually awesome to work with Helmgast and with Peter on that. It just made everything was just simple and almost natural.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like a good relationship.
Yes. And so when you are an artist who knows Kult and who has to do the cover of Kult, how do you deal with that? Like, it's really like, yeah, I don't want to fuck that up. And I had, you know, mentally, I had some spots that I wanted to hit. I wanted it to be mystical in a way. I wanted it to sound like Dead Can Dance was playing in the background. I wanted it to be sexualized because that's Kult. I wanted to feature a bit of pain, one way or another, and some of it came from Peter also, who was also giving me some some indication of what he wanted. Obviously, this is, you know, it's not just I came up with hey, this is it, and it comes from discussions. But yeah, pain, beauty. And when I say beauty, I don't mean pretty. I mean some kind of ceremonial. I worked with a model who is really one of the favorite model I work with. She's like kind of like my special weapon because she's someone with who we work together very well, and I knew she would just fit that cover perfectly. She has those like very impressive eyes. So I just needed to make her cry some blood and all the shit I say. I'm sorry. But yeah, so the idea was really to touch to the divine and to the darkness at the same time. The gold to make it almost like a religious icon. The blood on the dress, the city in the back, of course. You know, this overwhelming presence of that city.
That is awesome. So this definitely looks very different than. Just gonna grab all the other books that we have here. These right here. I mean, the core rule book definitely feels like this style is similar, right? But this one definitely kind of has a different approach, I feel, than the other two.
This one is older. This one is a piece that was not originally made for Kult. It was a very personal piece that it was not done for a client, it was not done for a project, it was a piece that I just made the way I wanted it, just for myself. And that's a piece that Peter came to me, he was like, hey, that matches completely what we want to do and everything. So I did a bit of touch up on it before I sent it to him. But it's let's just say that it's one of the most, we were talking about that one, but the one on that book is one of the most significant piece in my personal process, in my work. So yeah, I was also very excited to have it on the cover.
Yeah, and definitely like you can,
But no, it's like I already made it in advance, and without a function for anything, and one day it just fell into place where it had to be.
Yeah, and I like the texture on it. You can kind of see the movement in the background and kind of this almost roughness to it compared to the other two covers, which very much have a smoothness to it. Is it something that you are going to replicate in future pieces, or is it kind of just an evolution of your style?
It is an evolution, but it is something I miss. A lot of clients today have a tendency to ask me for cleaner work, and I miss the painterly textured brush. I'm going back to it. I don't know when, but I'm going back to it very soon, in fact.
Ooh, that'll be really interesting because it's definitely a style I very much appreciate. It's just kind of the roughness and the edge and the lines. It's very evocative.
I miss it in my work. I do miss it in my work. Yeah.
Is there? I mean, what's the future of your art and the growth of you as an artist? What do you think it will look like 5 years from now, if you can even guess what that will look like?
Hopefully, in 5 years, I will have found the gold. I will have found the map, found the place, found the gold, and bye. And you will never hear of me.
Off on an island.
No, I will not do myself the displeasure of trying to see where my artwork will be in 5 years. This is really an adventure, and I think one of the things that actually keeps me going is the fact that I don't know.
Yeah.
So I can tell you what is. I can come back to what I was telling you. I think my work today is it's a bit too clean and too detailed at some places. The cat is waking up.
It's fine.
I want to go back to, for example, for my upcoming games, I have Retro City will be almost exclusively photographic with a lot of manipulation and painting, but it will look just almost exclusively photographic. And on the other hand, to balance that, my other game, Curse, is going to be a lot of ink work and black and white sketches on paper, and a lot of black and red inking and all this kind of stuff. I find myself craving some strong directions, some visual decisions made and just going all the way. I have been missing that lately. So
yeah. And so you were talking about Retro City as well as Cursed, two games that are coming out within the next 2 years, hopefully,
I don't know.
Sometime. How does it approaching as a game designer and an artist a original work? with kind of experience in both areas, because normally a game designer is coming it from as a writer's perspective, and then they need to go search for the art to help keep them inspired. But you kind of have both of those tool sets in your repertoire. So how do you think that's different, or
that means I'm good, and that means I'm fucked. that means that I can write, I can design, game design, and I can illustrate. So basically, I need nobody else. So that's good. But I'm because that means I have to do everything. So that's and that's not. I love working with other artists, for example. I love, for example, on Gods, there is an entire team of writers, there is an entire team of illustrators. So I'm the main author, you know, I'm the one who built the world. But there are other writers who have bring something. I don't know if that's English what I'm saying, but they are bringing something into the game that I would not have. You know, they read what I've been doing, they take my directions, and what they did from it is just awesome and better than before they were not there.
Yeah, new perspectives.
The same with the artists. You know, they take your world, they listen to you, they understand it, and then they produce something new that you were not expecting. And it just makes the game richer and better. It gives, you know, perspectives and so that's existing on Gods, and that does not exist completely on Retrocity, and that does not exist on Curse, because right now I'm completely alone in those games. Retrocity is a game that is coming from my graphic novel that was published in 2011 in French. And I never did the effort to publish it in English because I was tired of it. I did not do the effort of making a second opus of a graphic novel because I was too busy. The only solution was the only thing I had a story to say with a graphic novel, and I don't have another story in my backpack. I have thousands of little stories. And all those little stories, they need a place to exist. And so the role-playing game Retrocity became obvious. It was like what I must do. I needed to open that box that will welcome all those stories. And so that's why I started that role-playing game. But on that one, with Gods, there was a decision to make a role-playing game. Let's make a role-playing game and let's, you know, create all that. With Retrocity, there is something that is me, that is from me, that already exists, and I have to make the role-playing game of something that is already there. And so I cannot delegate as much on Retrocity as I did with Gods, because it's like the kid is too young for me to let anyone else have
let out.
And Curse is we talk about Retrocity, but Retrocity and Curse there are two faces of one coin. Curse is it is a city as well. It is a haunted, sick city, but in the dark. It's a mix of medieval, baroque Europe. So Retrocity, I'm answering questions you did not ask. I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect. Keep going.
Retrocity is it's not placed in the US. It's a massive city in the US in the future, in a kind of near future. But I never place it on a map because it exists on its own, and that's it. Is it Chicago? Is it LA? Is it New York? I never answer those questions, and it's not because I don't even want to have the answers. So there are a lot of things I know about Retrocity. There are a lot of things to discover, but it's the city, and that's it. And Curse is the same, but in medieval Europe. And so, in fact, I'm just moving my thematics around in history and places, but the essence is the same. The big overall story is the same, and that story also echoes in Gods.
Interesting. So, I mean, you got three distinct tabletop role-playing games. One that's about to come out, the other's hopefully sometime in the future. Can you kind of just give a synopsis, like what are these games about, and why are they about that?
My answer is weird to that. So those games, they are all
Yes.
about the same. Not God. Okay, Gods is a dark fantasy game. I was just reading some stuff and I needed my good old dark fantasy with just a bit more blood and a bit more. You take a dark fantasy game, you take some cult, and you put just a little bit of cult in that, and that's Gods. Okay.
Awesome.
But or at least that was my intent, because today it has evolved. It's not not really that, but I'm still pushing in those directions with God. But Retrocity and Curse, if I give you the most honest answer, those games are as if my brain is a city with a lot of holes where you can go from a building to another.
Yeah.
And that the making a game about it is the only excuse I found to express it. Okay, so that's the abstract and bizarre answer.
Yeah.
What they are about? They are about how can humanity digest itself? What do we start that finally always eats us? Both games are based on a system that is making the city a perpetual actor on the character's life. Obviously, those are not the first games with this kind of mechanics, but it's very present because that's the essence of Retrocity. Retrocity, it's this kind of monster that was built by humanity and is swallowing humanity back. In Retrocity, if you get too attached to a piano or to a medallion with a portrait of your dead significant other, or you know your hair dryer because you are obsessed with your hair or whatever, it's not just about vanity, but there is a big part of that. All the materialism of mankind will get them, and so in Retrocity, the inhabitants of the city will have a tendency to physically fusion, merge, blend with objects.
Yeah.
That
sounds very unique and amazing. I mean, so you talk about kind of this abstract maze in your head, which sounds like something very different from kind of some of the other things we've talked about. The art and pieces that you are making for these games, are they going to look different from some of the things you've done in the past, just because it's kind of coming from this place, or I guess what's kind of the style you're going for as you unleash your mind upon the world?
I don't know. I don't know how to, like, so far the artwork I do for Retrocity, I still find myself navigating into pieces that are here to illustrate a role-playing game book. You know, so well, I'm talking about that specific sector of the city, so I need to illustrate this specific building, and so I just do it. So there is a mix of me being my own art director and know what I have to do, and there are some artwork that just I need to do that artwork, and I know that it will have its place in Retrocity because it comes from me, and Retrocity is just my brain as well. So there are really both dynamic at play, and I think a part of the job will be to just make them mix well.
Interesting. Yeah, super excited about that. So obviously you have a very unique and distinct style. Was there anyone who kind of inspired you down that road? Any kind of artistic inspirations that you can point to and be like, I wanted to be like them?
So to be fully honest, I was really this kind of obnoxious young kid at some point who has been able to tell his art professor, I don't want to look at the work of master painters because they will influence me too much. So can you imagine how sick that is? It's like, oh, well, I'm too great to be influenced by. So thankfully, my painting professor kicked my ass so bad that he kind of fixed me on that. But I took Yeah, this year I actually took a big humility lesson, and that's probably my best painting lesson, was to learn how to just like study in humility.
Mm-hmm.
My references are usually not from the painting or drawing field. I will quote music, books, and movies a lot.
Interesting.
I will throw obviously some Blade Runner at you, some Fellini, some Bergman, some Kurosawa.
Mm-hmm.
That is essential. Lot of books. For a long time, I was obsessed with the Black Dahlia, and so that led me to read a lot of James Ellroy.
Mm-hmm.
But I read a lot of fiction, non-fiction, philosophy. I spend time with that, and music all the time. It's to a point where when I have to explain gods to the team, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I will make them listen to some specific tracks rather than trying to explain with words
Interesting.
the mood I want. I will listen to that tracks of Reverend Bizarre, or take that tracks of Dead Can Dance and get that, and or Lost More. Or I'm not going to give you a list of musicians who inspire me, but there is a lot, and of a lot of different styles. From
Yeah.
a lot of things. As far as visually, I will quote the obvious, but Gerald Brom was
Mm-hmm.
really a very strong influence on me. A little bit later and in different ways, but I always have been a huge fan of Christopher Shy's work, because I thought he had this same thing with his use of photograph, and with a lot of freedom and a lot of he was one of those people who was not afraid to visually explore stuff no matter what. So I think he has a madness, and I'm happy to be able to call him a friend today. He actually has some pieces in Gods.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Done by him or inspired?
no, done by him. Like
Wow.
he did some pieces for Gods, so I'm super happy with that. And there are there are a lot of. What is really Benjamin Carré, who is a French illustrator that
Mm-hmm.
early on I was looking at his work a lot, and he has the same influence than I do. He's a Blade Runner person, and so we have a lot of conversations about Blade Runner. Um, it's a sweet feeling to realize that today all the people I was looking up to are just people I can call today and just chat for. It's this is sweet.
Yeah, that is really cool. So you were talking about yourself as an obnoxious young arrogant man in the art world, and now you are the seasoned professor. Is there any students that you kind of see that same little twinkle in their eyes
Yes.
as you had?
Yeah, and it is sweet. There are cultural differences.
Mm-hmm.
I don't or time differences. It may not be cultural, but I don't look at my students' dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
It does not trigger memories of when I was a student. When I look at them, I feel like it's
Yeah.
different time, different place. I definitely see this fire in some of my students today. Some of them are very humble about it. Some of them are arrogant, but it does not. I take them where they are at the age they have, and whatever the energy is, I tell them to do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah. What's kind of the, I guess, if you kind of had to leave one impression on them as a dive out into the world of art, what do you think that would be?
Are you asking me about the one I want or the ones that will be?
I'm now curious about both.
So I have a reputation of a very scary person,
Mm-hmm.
because I am very I expect things from them, and but usually they are scared of me until they take my class. They picture me with like the tall, always dressed in black man with an accent, and they are intimidated. And when they take my class, they realize that I don't take myself seriously at all. I play a lot of the things that they're afraid of is actually something I just play with, but I'm good at making them comfortable. I think what my students talk about when they say that they miss something about me after they graduate, it's my lectures that give them a kick in the ass about what is going to be once they graduate, and at the same time give them a lot of, like a pep talk, like a lot of energy, a lot of will to go through. And this is a very complicated topic, because sometimes I feel a bit guilty. I have had some students of mine who I can see that they are not ready, and sometimes I doubt the fact that they will ever be able to do something. They will be able to do something probably with their artwork, but they will never make it like to the professional level that they would love to reach sometime. And again, I don't want to. I don't know, but in my opinion, I doubt that. And and they will at the same time say, "Well, look, we can do it. Bastien did it." And I feel like sometimes I'm as much an inspiration to them than some kind of sign that tells them, yeah, go ahead, go this way. But in fact, the road is going to end up sooner than what they think. I'm glad to be inspiring, but I don't want to be misleading them as well. A lot of time I talked to my students a lot about when I got my master's degree, and then I had to find a job at the factory, and all these hard years, really hard years, having to take any job, and I did everything. Like I sold cigarettes, I worked at the factory, I made sandwiches, I made crepes.
I love crepes.
Me too. And there are some videos somewhere on the internet of me like flying crepes and stuff like that. My wife has those videos somewhere. But and I talk to them a lot about that, my students. I tell them about the fact that it's going to be harsh for some of you, and the thing that made me is the fact that no matter what the job was, at the end of the day, I was always coming home and try to put 2 hours of drawing or painting.
Yeah.
It was not an easy road.
Yeah.
It was not.
Definitely. So I'm curious, have you ever done a self-portrait?
Yes, but at school. Oh, no, wait, later than that. I did. So I could give you the kind of basic answer and tell you that every one of my pieces is a self-portrait. I could play that card. I could be like, anytime I paint, I put so much of me into that. But I think that's not completely true. A lot of my work is, done for clients, and I just do what they say. And so a true self-portrait, trying to just actively paint yourself, I have not done that for a while. I use myself as a reference sometimes. So sometimes you will have like my hands or my chest or even sometimes my face on some artwork, but it's usually when I have to find a reference right now and I don't have the time to call a model because I have a deadline. So I actually, anytime I can avoid using myself as a reference, I do it. But I remember one magic card where the commission was a guy with, his hair back, a curly mustache, like looking kind of like a vampire. And I was like, no, this is too much me. So I went all over. And so there is a magic card with my face on it, lifting a rod with a black flower and a red flower, and they're both dripping. And
I feel like I need to find this.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the card, but yeah, you can find it. But that's the last self-portrait I did, but even that was not me just sitting and making a portrait of myself. That's an exercise because of the virus, last semester was aborted. And so all my live drawing classes were cancelled, and I had to find a way to get my students to still work from life. And not just from a photograph, but from life, because this exercise of looking at something in 3D and turning it into 2D does not work if you work from photos. So I had my students working in front of a mirror, from home, and trying to really portray themselves. And I was not expecting so much enthusiasm and at the same time so much suffering. They were all pissed. When they finally gave me their work, they were like, take it, it's too much, it's too hard, it's too... And I do remember that. I do remember when I was practicing painting and drawing, and when I was doing self-portraits, honestly, sincere self-portraits, when you try to explore, like, your self, it was never easy. I think your question makes me think that maybe it's time for me to make another self-portrait. And
I'd be very interested to see that. Yeah, self-portraits to me have always been kind of very, I want to say kind of spiritual in a way, just because as an artist, you're putting what you normally yourself out there in terms of how you interpret yourself, and then you're also putting yourself, your physical appearance, how you interpret, how you look to yourself, and it's always been a fascinating thing to kind of see that for artists.
Yeah,
definitely. So if you do that, I want to see it one day.
I may share that, but same thing, there are several steps. There is the thinking about the artwork, there is the doing the artwork, then there is the sharing the artwork, and that's
yeah. How is it in terms of when you're creating and making these wonderful pieces? Is there kind of a difference between the creating of something that will just be on a card, as opposed to something that will be on a book, as opposed to something that will be kind of up on the wall?
Yeah, there are. That's an interesting question. You have to. There is one thing that the Magic the Gathering art director always have to really insist on with artists to begin working with them is will it read at card size? And so when you are doing an artwork that is going to be that big, you need to make sure that the narrative elements of this image are eye-catching, and that they pop, and that's what we see first, even in a very small. So we have to be very careful with our composition. If you are working on something that is going to be a big poster, that people will have the time to look at it and just spend some time, and so basically, to make it very simple, if you want, I have a piece. It's a skull, and that skull has a mechanical eye with just a glass on it, and in the glass there is the silhouette of a woman masturbating. And so that's very heavy, because this is this kind of memento mori piece with that skull with again I just said it, but a woman pleasuring herself in front of that skull in a way. So it's and that piece was printed for a show in Paris many years ago, and it was printed very large, and so people will spend time looking at the skull and everything, and most of them will finally see what was really going on in that. If I print that on a card size, or if I print that smaller, it will never show up, and it's just a painting of a skull, and so not half, but like the entire meaning of that piece is just taken away. So yeah, of course, depending of the support, the print, the book, is it a print, is it a book, is it a card, is it whatever, the composition has to be imagined differently.
Interesting.
That's something I love with my job, actually, the composing. How do you tell? This is really why I do that job, in fact. I have a story to tell. How do I tell it? That's composition right there.
Interesting. So I was looking over the all your work and everything, and there's definitely a sense of what I could say a sensuality to every piece. How do you begin kind of that process? Is it kind of based on watching the models, and why do you think sexuality is important to your work?
So I like, somehow the word sexuality sounds harsher and stronger than sensuality. When we say sensuality, we imagine something softer, maybe that's just me, but
no, I mean, I agree.
And I was always fascinated by bodies, flesh, bones, architecture. When I say architecture, I mean human architecture. I love that. I, I mean, I love that. That's a dumb statement, but I don't know. It's truly an obsession. It's like it's what matters to me when I work. I'm not. I can do landscapes. I can do a lot of stuff, but that's not where I go when I paint. So why is that? I don't think it's or necessary or ultimately interesting to try to find out, why. I know that when I was a kid, there was some pornographic comic books in the bookshelf of my parents. A specific one was a book by Milos Manara. And I remember the complete fascination with the way the bodies were portrayed in that. So I remember that very early on, way too early, basically.
Yeah.
I have a lot of memories of me as a little kid being fascinated by human bodies. Some stuff that are too personal for me to discuss them on a video. I have no problem talking about it, but
Yeah.
it's not something I want to put online. But it was always a part of my work, I think. I mean, even the early drawings I was showing you are featuring human anatomy. A lot of people ask me about, like, do you only paint women? And no, that's absolutely not the case. What's happening is in my career today, I have to paint a lot more women than men, and so my portfolio is more full of that. But even in Gods, for example, you will find out that if you start looking, you will find out that I paint my male character shirtless as much as I paint my woman character shirtless. I do love the way a vein will like turn around on an arm and what a muscle does when you see it just when you twist an arm, the way everything articulates. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with that, and I love to paint it and draw it. So
yeah,
and
definitely. And
photograph
like,
it too.
yeah, looking through, I mean, the as you said, like the men, especially the inside cover of Gods, you see the men and just the intensity of the form there, and you not even go into creating men with kind of like these I guess atypical masculine traits such as the broad shoulders and the chest, but you also have these very very slim men as well. And it's kind of interesting seeing the different characteristics of humanity interpreted by yourself throughout your work. And
so I work with a real diversity of models. That's another thing I do. It may not appear like that because they all come through my filter, but I also try to. It's not that I try; is that I do work with models that I think fit with a specific character or a picture I want to make, and I do work with a lot of men and women who have really their own, their body is what it is, and I love working with who they are. That's super important. This is also why, you asked about sensuality or sexuality. It is sometimes present in my work, but it's also important to not confuse. There are a lot of pieces featuring nudity that has nothing to do with sexuality. And there are a lot of pieces in my work that feature maybe less body, but are definitely completely sexual. So there are, but I don't shy away from those thematics. Definitely, I love those thematics. I love the human body. I love when they mix together, and I love when they. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of the work that you make, and whether they're nude or not nude, how do you interpret sexuality in your work, and kind of how is it reflected back to the viewer, despite kind of what they're wearing or how they're presented? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I get your question, but so maybe you want to reformulate it, or
Yeah.
maybe
So
I can try to answer it, but
yeah, well, so you were talking about some pieces were, fully clothed but still sexual, and others were kind of nude, and it wasn't a sexual piece. How kind of, because in terms of the lens, I think of the world, I mean, nudity in general is kind of sexual. Now, people have different perspectives, of course, but how do you interpret sexuality in your own work?
but
And
I think people will sexualize the body.
Mhm.
It's a matter of perspective too. Like
Yeah,
I have a job that makes that I see naked people every fucking day. Like
yeah,
people joke about that, but when you are a live drawing professor or when you take photos of people, I see nude people all the time, and I don't. It has nothing to do with sexuality.
hmm
Some good friends of mine will tell you it's always sexual, and I love that debate. I love that conversation. I don't think I have
yeah,
a final answer with that, but yes, of course, we are all driven by desires and physical attraction or repulsion, or so it's always sexual in that way. But it would be a very very complex problem if me as an artist today I had to deal with sexuality every time I'm in the presence of someone nude. um, so basically, in my lab drawing classes,
hmm
my students and I, when I draw, um, we are just trying to understand the human form, and that's something that it becomes almost scientific for
hmm
the artist. And I'm talking, I'm pretty sure I'm being the voice of a lot of, the artistic community with that,
yeah,
because we end up being almost scientific students. We make studies, anatomic studies, figure studies,
hmm
but for other people, they see a naked body, they see someone nude, and so automatically, because nudity is not it's not something that is part of their daily routine, they project sexuality in it.
yeah,
So I think this principle is the same in my artwork. Sometimes I will feature the human structure, the human architecture, and people will project sexuality in it because they see a tit or a butt or a rib cage or
yeah,
um, a nipple, for example. Facebook sexualized the nipple so much
yeah,
that you
yeah.
cannot have a nipple on the internet. But you know what? Most of us have some, and it's okay, And so when you paint
I know, right?
when you paint the body, you paint it with nipples, and so this is really a cultural and societal thematic right there.
hmm
In my artwork, you will find characters who have a finger dripping, so they are fully dressed, but their finger is dripping something white, for example, and so this
hmm
is completely sexual, but without showing the body.
Yeah,
There are so many. There, there are so many things. I don't know. I'm thinking about blades that are dripping black ink that will fall on
yeah,
the side of a character. Falling on the side of a man that is sitting right there, and so that just that dripping on the. So it's sexuality is right there without nudity.
hmm
Um,
Interesting.
so you see, it's a dance that is
Yeah.
really complex, really complex. And as far as me, the artist, it's almost like I'm dancing it and I don't really have time to discuss it. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I have no problem discussing it with you. I think it's super interesting. And I'm glad you asked those questions. Um, but I'm too busy dancing. And
Yeah, I know it's a big topic,
Mhm.
and a lot goes into it. So I think for one of my final questions for you, and I know we kind of have danced around a lot of topics today, and I really appreciate it. But you talked about the artist is kind of an architect in response to the human form.
Mhm.
How do you think, because I would, if I talk to an architect, I know that they have an appreciation for architecture, and they see things that I don't see. How do you think the artist kind of sees that in the same way for the human architecture?
Um, one of the things that I love is that I have worked with the body so much
Mhm.
That will sound super, super like cheesy, but that's really a truth. I am really struggling to find someone ugly.
Mhm.
Um, I have drawn and photographed and worked with so many bodies uh, that the person I am today I truly cannot see anything else but something, no matter the body shape and
Yeah.
size and form, or old or young, or if I look uh, through my artistic journey, if I look at a model for me to draw, it's just always fascinating and interesting. And so there is no it kind of, this entire artistic career kind of, we are talking about the link with sexuality, in that
Yeah.
um, in a way my relationship with the body as a subject also affects me as a person, and my own sexuality, and what's attracting to me, what's not, or
Mhm.
it did complexify everything, because I'm just this idiot who sees beauties everywhere now. Beauty everywhere. I will look at a shape of a finger, or just to give you an example. Uh, you could be a caricatural teenager who is just obsessed with Playboy magazines and the way
Mhm.
tits have to look, or butts have to look, or color of the eyes, or whatever. And
Yeah.
and when you start to study again the body in its beauty in general, uh, all those, what in the 90s we would have called like the plastic beauty, like those
Mhm.
bodies that are completely stereotypical, they kind of look boring and ugly, because this is so much one standard compared to all the diversity that we have. And what's really great is that these things that I feel, I usually talk about that with my students at the beginning of a semester. I talk about the complexity of what it implies to be working with the body for an entire semester or two, or maybe a full, hopefully a full cycle of
Yeah.
their bachelor's. Um, and we discussed that, and I can tell you that every student at the end of their studies and at the end of all those live drawing classes, they come to me and they were like, "You remember that speech, that conversation that we had? You were so right," and it does completely change them.
That's a very beautiful sentiment, because it makes me think of the architect who kind of appreciates every building for what it was meant to,
Mhm.
and kind of, even if someone looks at it and says, that's not something that I would appreciate, the architect looks at it and understands kind of its relevance within
Well,
the
it
whole
is,
of it.
yeah, you are very, very right with that. It's the same thing that, there was some paintings, some painters that I did not like because I did not like what they were doing. And when I started to paint, I
Hmm.
cannot not like them. Maybe at some time, at some point, they were not my taste. And
Hmm.
now that I know what they have to do, know that I'm a specialist of my field as well, and I know what they were doing, I'm like, oh my God, that's fucking fascinating. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of personal taste anymore. I had a model one time. She was going to pose for me, and so for example, maybe that's too personal, but my models, they don't undress in the same room
Hmm.
where they are going to pose. They have a room where they go, so they can then cover themselves with a robe, so they don't have
Hmm.
to. It's very essential to avoid the idea of stripping with the artist in the
Yeah.
room. It just I really like good boundaries for respect of the
Hmm.
models and myself. And so she went and changed, and she came back with a robe, and before she was about to undress, before we started the session, she looked at me and she was like, "There is something I have to tell you." And I'm like, it goes fast in my mind. I'm like, whatever she has to tell me, no matter what, it will not bother me. Worst
Yeah.
case scenario, like she will have like a tattoo that says something that I completely disagree with, and then maybe I will be like, yeah, okay, all right, we won't be friends. But
Yeah.
so I don't know. And she's like, and she looks at me. She's like, I have had a hip surgery and I have a massive scar, and I did not know how to tell you. And I'm like, and I made it so easy on her, and I was like, just shut the fuck up, like what? And you know, like, and that's. I spent so much time drawing and painting that scar that she has, and we had conversation about it and everything, and that's really again, that's a very long topic and long conversation, so I don't want to talk too much, but it's really something that it was an experience for me, it was an experience for her, and there is almost a story like that, or that kind of, or at least a story of just feeling good about yourself in absolutely every modeling session I have. It's not always the case, you know, there are obviously, there are bad experiences and people who are up to no good in that field, but
I mean, it sounds like you definitely respect and just kind of I like the image of that of the model you're talking about, kind of being accepted and kind of all the work placed into a piece for something that a person might be ashamed of normally, and to kind of bear that, I think is a very beautiful thing.
I was this modeling session was part of her process for herself, with herself. I was part of it. I was included in it, but I was almost a tool. You know, I was a. She needed me to be there because she was going to model and be okay with that and everything. But I just had to accept her own process basically and let it be part of mine as well. And it's complex, but there is really a beauty in that, I think.
Yeah. Amazing. All right, so we have went everywhere with this discussion, and I feel like I can just talk to you forever about all of these amazing things. But of course, for those watching, this has been Bastien Lecouffe-Deharme.
Yeah, you're good. I don't even know if I say my name right. So
I feel like you get points for trying. Artist, writer, game designer, jack of all trades. Definitely be on the lookout for his work coming out. Hopefully sometime in the future. I know that you can get on his Discord, and I know he's super amazing with everyone who's on his Discord. I'm a participant there too, and it has been awesome just getting to know the community. But once again, Bastien, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.